John had been preparing for this mission for months. He was a human explorer with a deep curiosity for life on other planets. His latest journey had brought him to a remote desert world, a place known for its harsh sandstorms, jagged rock formations, and strange life forms that had never been fully catalogued. The planet had long intrigued scientists across the galaxy because of reports of creatures that could survive extreme heat, scarce water, and shifting sands. John felt both excitement and a sense of responsibility as he descended from his small shuttle onto the vast sun-baked surface of the desert. The heat pressed down on him immediately, the air thick with fine particles of sand. He adjusted his protective suit, checking the filters and sensors. His mission was simple in theory: observe, record, and study any unusual life forms he could find. In practice, however, the challenge would be far greater. John had not yet settled into his new home when he noticed the settlement ahead. A small cluster of domed buildings, partially buried in sand dunes, stood like islands in a sea of ochre. Each structure was shaped to withstand the violent winds that could sweep across the desert without warning. As he approached, John felt a mix of nervousness and anticipation. He had traveled alone for weeks, and the presence of other intelligent beings, even if alien, was a comforting thought. He had contacted the landlady, Zara, ahead of time. Zara was reputed to be strict and fastidious, a requirement for anyone renting property on her desert outpost. Humans were rare here, and John knew that his every action would be observed with scrutiny. Zara herself was waiting at the entrance of the small dome-shaped house he had rented. She was taller than a human, with a slender frame covered in pale blue skin that shimmered faintly in the desert sun. Her eyes were large and black, with vertical slits that gave her an appearance both exotic and intimidating. When she looked at John, he immediately sensed her wariness. Humans were often seen as reckless or impulsive by the local species, and Zara clearly held such opinions. She folded her arms and scrutinized him from head to toe, her posture stiff. "You are punctual," she said, her voice carrying a tone that was sharp but not hostile. "Many humans are not." John smiled politely, bowing slightly in acknowledgement. "I like to keep my commitments," he said. "I'm here to study the creatures on your planet and to respect your rules." Zara raised one of her elongated eyebrows, a gesture John was learning was akin to surprise or doubt. "We will see," she replied, turning and motioning him inside. The interior of the dome was small but functional. There was a raised platform serving as a bed, a few shelves holding basic supplies, and a small table with tools that looked more advanced than anything John had expected. The air was dry and slightly cool, circulated by a system that filtered sand and dust. John set down his belongings, taking in the surroundings. The structure was tidy, almost painfully so. He could tell immediately that Zara expected the same level of order and care from her tenants. He began to unpack his equipment carefully, ensuring that every sensor, recording device, and sample container was accounted for. As he did so, Zara watched silently, occasionally glancing at a small console on the wall that displayed environmental readings. "I expect no disturbances," Zara said finally, her tone firm. "This home is clean, quiet, and meant for focused work. I will not tolerate negligence or reckless handling of equipment." "I understand," John said, nodding. "I am careful by nature, and I respect the property of others." Zara seemed satisfied with this response, at least for the moment. She gave him a brief tour of the facilities, showing him the water filtration system, the energy source, and the small storage compartments where he could keep his samples. The home was equipped for long-term occupancy, even in the unforgiving desert environment. After the tour, Zara left him alone to settle in. John felt a wave of relief and excitement. He had arrived at his new home safely, and the environment was suitable for the work he had planned. Yet he could not shake the feeling that something unusual awaited him, though he did not know what. The desert world was known for its strange life, and John's intuition, honed over years of exploration, told him that he would encounter something remarkable soon. He began to organize his research equipment. He had sensors to detect life signs, containers for soil and water samples, and cameras for recording activity outside. He set up a small observation area near the entrance of the dome, giving him a view of the dunes while remaining protected from the wind and sand. The sun was low in the sky, casting long shadows across the desert, and John could see the faint shimmer of heat rising from the sand. This time of day was ideal for observing small desert creatures that emerged as the temperature cooled. As he adjusted his sensors, he noticed movement in the sand a few meters away. A small, worm-like creature, no more than 10 centimeters long, wriggled across the surface. Its body was segmented and covered in fine bristles that allowed it to grip the sand as it moved. Its color matched the environment perfectly, making it almost invisible against the dunes. John's pulse quickened. This was the type of life he had hoped to encounter. Unique, adapted to the harsh conditions and possibly unknown to science. He reached for his camera, careful not to make sudden movements. The creature paused, sensing motion in the air, then resumed its slow crawl toward him. John recorded every movement, noting its behavior, speed, and physical characteristics. The creature's small size and adaptability fascinated him. He was careful to maintain distance, understanding that sudden actions could startle it. He made notes, sketches, and measurements, all while observing its natural behavior. Hours passed as John continued his observations. He did not notice Zara returning until she was standing at the doorway, her expression a mixture of shock and curiosity. "What is that?" she demanded, her voice rising slightly. Her large eyes were fixed on the small creature now moving near John's feet. "It's harmless," John said calmly. "A native desert creature. I found it outside and brought it in for study. I am documenting its behavior." Zara's antennae twitched nervously. "Do you understand the rules of safety?" she asked. "You cannot simply bring creatures inside. What if it bites? What if it spreads disease?" "I am careful," John replied, maintaining a calm tone. "It poses no threat. I am observing it in a controlled environment, and I will return it to the desert soon." Zara studied him silently for a moment. Her posture remained rigid, but her curiosity was evident. She had encountered humans before, but few approached their work with such calmness, patience, and respect for life. John's behavior challenged her assumptions about humans being reckless or overly confident. Over the next few hours, Zara observed John as he recorded the creature's movements, feeding patterns, and interaction with its environment. She asked questions, her tone softer than before, showing genuine interest. John answered carefully, explaining his methods and the reasons behind each action. Slowly, Zara's initial fear gave way to fascination. She was beginning to see that humans, while different, had a unique approach to understanding life, careful, methodical, and patient. As night fell, the desert sky filled with stars and the temperature dropped. John set up a small light to simulate daylight for his observations, ensuring the creature could behave naturally. Zara stepped back, watching quietly. She realized that John was not just an explorer, he was a teacher, showing her how to appreciate the subtle behaviors of life around them. John felt a sense of satisfaction. He had arrived on this harsh planet, found a new home, and encountered a remarkable creature, all on the first day. The adventure he had dreamed of for years was beginning in earnest. And although he did not yet know it, the tiny desert creature would become the focus of many interactions, surprises, and lessons for both him and Zara in the days to come. By the end of the night, John had completed detailed sketches, recorded movement patterns, and written notes about the creature's size, body structure, and behavior. Zara, now intrigued, offered him a place near her observation console to continue his study. The first day had been full of tension, curiosity, and discovery, setting the stage for a unique partnership between human and alien observer. John lay down on his raised platform, exhausted but thrilled. He could hear the wind whistling outside and the faint movement of sand shifting across the dunes. His mind replayed every detail of the creature, every interaction with Zara, and every observation he had made. Tomorrow would bring more study, more discoveries, and more lessons in the delicate balance of life on this desert world. For now, he closed his eyes, excited for the days ahead, unaware that the tiny creature he had found would soon cause moments of surprise, misunderstanding, and fascination, especially for his alien landlady, Zara. The desert planet, harsh as it was, had already begun to reveal its secrets, and John knew that his adventure was only beginning. John was busy unpacking his equipment, setting up his sensors and cameras near the small observation area he had prepared in his new home. Each item had its place, and he carefully arranged everything to allow him to observe desert life with minimal disturbance. The desert world outside was harsh, and he knew that any disruption could scare away the rare creatures he hoped to study. The sunlight streaming through the small windows created long shadows on the floor, casting a golden glow over his carefully organized tools and containers. He moved slowly, deliberately, making sure not to jostle any equipment. As he bent down to retrieve a small container of sample vials, a subtle movement caught his eye. Something small and thin wriggled across the floor, moving with an unusual grace and speed. John froze, his heart quickening with excitement. He had expected to encounter strange creatures on this planet, but the creature he now saw was unique. It was a tiny worm-like animal, no longer than a human finger, with a segmented body and soft bristles along its sides. Its color blended almost perfectly with the sand-colored floor, making it nearly invisible until it moved. John crouched down, observing the creature carefully. It seemed curious rather than afraid, inching closer toward him. Its small, round head moved independently from the rest of its body, scanning the surroundings as if assessing the new environment. John marveled at its adaptability. Even though it was far from its natural desert habitat, it moved with ease and seemed interested in him. His curiosity grew as he noted its behavior. The creature was unlike any he had catalogued before. Its flexibility, the coordination of its tiny muscles, and its attention to the environment suggested a surprising level of intelligence for such a small being. He gently extended his hand toward the creature, careful not to frighten it. The worm-like animal paused for a moment, its bristles slightly vibrating, and then it wriggled onto his palm as if trusting him instinctively. John smiled. This was a rare moment. The creature was showing signs of trust, something he had only observed in more complex species before. He carefully placed it near the small observation table, allowing it to move freely but remain within the boundaries of his study area. At that precise moment, the door to the dwelling opened abruptly. Zara, the alien landlady, had returned unexpectedly. She had been checking other tenants in the nearby settlement and had come by to ensure her property was maintained properly. She paused in the doorway, her large black eyes widening in shock at the sight before her. John could see her antennae twitching nervously. "What is that?" Zara exclaimed, her voice rising in pitch and urgency. She pointed at the small creature wriggling on the table, but her gaze shifted in a way that revealed she had misunderstood its position and proximity. Her words came out faster than usual, carrying both fear and disbelief. "Human? Why is there a mini Shihulid between your legs?" John froze for a moment, realizing that Zara had misinterpreted the situation. Her expression was one of pure alarm. The creature had not been near him in the way she imagined, yet her instincts had kicked in immediately. She stepped back cautiously, her tail-like appendage brushing against the doorframe, as if she needed to keep some distance from the perceived threat. Her body language clearly indicated both fear and fascination. John immediately raised his hands in a calming gesture, trying to reassure her. "It's harmless," he said in a calm voice, hoping to defuse the tension. "This is a desert creature. I found it outside and brought it in to study it safely. It does not pose any danger." Zara's antennae twitched as she processed his words. Her large eyes narrowed, scanning the tiny creature again. "Harmless," she repeated, her tone skeptical. "It moves quickly. Its body, it seems alive, and I have never seen a creature like this. How can you guarantee it will not bite or attack?" John stepped closer, maintaining a careful distance, and showed her how the creature moved. "See? It is not aggressive. It explores, it feeds, and it reacts to its surroundings, but only with curiosity. It is intelligent in its own way. I am documenting its behavior carefully, and I will ensure it does not leave this controlled area until I understand it fully." Zara continued to watch, her initial shock slowly giving way to cautious curiosity. She had met humans before, but few had the patience or calmness that John displayed in situations that she herself found alarming. His ability to stay composed, even when confronted with a creature that startled her, intrigued her. She tilted her head slightly, considering his words while keeping her distance. John placed a small light above the observation area to mimic natural desert sunlight. He explained, "I want to record its behavior in conditions similar to its natural environment. This will help me understand how it moves, feeds, and interacts with objects. I am being careful. Nothing will harm you or me." Zara's antennae relaxed slightly, though her large eyes remained fixed on the tiny worm-like creature. She took a tentative step closer, her curiosity overcoming some of her fear. "It moves strangely, but not violently," she muttered. How do you know it will not attack?" John smiled gently. "Because it is responding to calmness and care. Most creatures, even small ones, can sense stress or aggression. I have learned to approach them in a way that minimizes fear. This creature is reacting the same way. See how it is exploring rather than hiding or striking." He extended a small stick with a tiny bit of food toward the creature. It wriggled onto the stick carefully and began nibbling. Zara watched intently, fascinated by the demonstration. Her previous fear was replaced by awe at the creature's delicate movements and John's understanding of it. It is intelligent," she said softly, almost to herself. "I did not think such small creatures could behave this way." John nodded. "Intelligence comes in many forms. Size does not determine it. I have observed larger creatures that are far less adaptable than this one. He jotted notes in his data pad, recording the creature's movements, feeding patterns, and responses. Zara crouched slightly, her eyes never leaving the tiny animal. She could see the methodical way John handled it. His patience, calmness, and care were evident. Over the next hour, John demonstrated more behaviors. He showed how the creature reacted to changes in light, slight shifts in temperature, and gentle obstacles placed in its path. Zara watched closely, asking questions now rather than exclaiming. "Why do you do this?" she asked. "What will you learn?" John explained, "I want to understand how it survives in the desert. Its movements, reactions, and adaptations can tell us how it navigates the environment, finds food, and avoids danger. Every small behavior is a clue to its survival strategies." Zara nodded slowly. She began to see the value in John's work. Her initial alarm at the so-called mini-Shihulid had been replaced by curiosity and admiration. She could appreciate the human ability to remain calm, patient, and observant in situations that would terrify most aliens. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the dome, John continued his observations. He recorded every detail meticulously, noting how the tiny creature explored corners, adjusted its body to fit narrow spaces, and reacted to new objects. Zara remained close, her eyes wide but steady, absorbing every moment. She was learning from John, witnessing the power of patience and intelligence firsthand. By nightfall, the creature had become comfortable in its temporary enclosure, and Zara had relaxed enough to sit nearby and watch. She no longer saw it as a threat but as an interesting subject of study. John smiled at her, recognizing the shift in her attitude. The bond of understanding between human and alien observer was forming, built on trust, patience, and careful attention to detail. John felt a sense of satisfaction. His first full day on the desert planet had been successful. He had unpacked, set up his study, and encountered a creature worthy of careful scientific observation. Zara, once skeptical and alarmed, now watched with fascination and respect. The stage was set for days of discovery, learning, and perhaps even friendship. As he prepared to document his observations for the night, John reflected on the events. A small worm-like creature, which had initially caused a moment of chaos, had become the bridge between two very different beings. In the vast desert, amidst shifting sands and relentless winds, a human and an alien were beginning to learn from one another. And this was only the beginning of a story that would test patience, intelligence, and the ability to see beyond fear and appearances. The night grew quiet, the desert winds whispering outside. John carefully secured the tiny creature in its temporary habitat, making sure it had food and water, and monitored its vitals through his sensors. Zara lingered nearby, her eyes reflecting both fascination and cautious admiration. The day's events had taught her something she had not expected. Humans could approach challenges calmly, respect life, and teach through observation rather than force. John lay down on his bed platform, exhausted but exhilarated. The tiny desert creature continued to move quietly in its enclosure, a reminder that even in the harshest conditions, life could be clever, resilient, and curious. He closed his eyes, thinking of the days ahead, of the discoveries that awaited, and of the lessons he would share not only with the galaxy but with Zara, the strict and easily startled landlady who had already begun to see humans in a new light. John chuckled softly, his laughter gentle and reassuring. He could see the tension in Zara's posture, the way her antennae twitched nervously, and the wide-eyed stare that followed every small movement of the tiny desert creature. "It's harmless," he said calmly, holding up his hands to show there was no threat. "This little one is part of my research. It's just a desert species, curious and cautious, but not dangerous." Zara blinked rapidly, still frozen with shock. She had encountered many creatures before, but few that moved so quickly and unpredictably. In her experience, creatures that wriggled and explored near living beings often had sharp teeth or venomous appendages. Seeing one so small and seemingly delicate near a human startled her greatly. Her mind raced with warnings and cautionary rules ingrained by years of alien life experience. Yet John's calm tone and steady movements began to ease the fear she felt. John carefully extended his hand toward the tiny worm-like animal again. It paused briefly, sensing the human's motion, and then wriggled onto his palm. Zara's eyes widened even more at this action. She had expected the creature to recoil or lash out, but instead, it moved with confidence as if it trusted John. The human's understanding of alien life was apparent, and it made her pause. She could sense the respect he had for the smallest details of living beings. "Look," John said, pointing to the creature as it explored his hand. See how it moves? It uses its bristles to grip the surface and adjust its body. It's very aware of its surroundings. This is how it survives in the desert, by being careful, adaptable, and intelligent in its own way. Zara leaned forward slightly, curiosity overcoming her fear. She studied the tiny animal as it inched along John's arm, noting how it reacted to changes in the angle of his hand, how it paused when sensing vibrations, and how it seemed to evaluate each surface before moving. Its movements were deliberate, almost thoughtful, and she found herself fascinated despite the initial shock. John placed the creature gently on the observation table. It crawled over the smooth surface, exploring every corner, testing the edges, and probing the small objects John had set up. See, he said. It's not aggressive. It's just exploring. Its body and behavior are perfectly adapted to its environment. We can learn a lot from watching it closely. Zara tilted her head, studying the tiny creature. It seems intelligent, she said softly, almost to herself. I never imagined such a small being could act with such awareness. She took a cautious step closer, her fear beginning to fade. The initial shock had transformed into a careful interest. She wanted to understand, to learn why this human could handle a situation she would have found terrifying. John smiled. Intelligence comes in many forms, he said. Not all of it is like ours. This creature is small, but it knows how to survive. It reacts to the environment, makes decisions, and even shows curiosity. That's intelligence in my view. Over the next hour, John demonstrated more of the creature's behavior. He placed a small piece of food in front of it, showing how it sniffed, adjusted its body, and carefully consumed it. Zara watched, her eyes wide, noting the meticulous way John explained each action and its significance. He took measurements, drew sketches, and recorded observations in his data pad. Each note and drawing highlighted how the creature interacted with its surroundings, how it adapted to changes, and how it exhibited signs of learning from experience. Zara's initial fear was slowly replaced by fascination. She began asking questions, her voice now calmer and curious. How long does it live? She asked. How does it survive in such heat? Can it sense danger from far away? John answered patiently. Its lifespan is relatively short, but it survives because it is well adapted. Its body structure allows it to conserve water, its bristles help it move on sand without sinking, and it senses vibrations to detect predators. It may be small, but it is resilient. Zara's antennae twitched as she processed the information. She had assumed that a creature so tiny and fragile would struggle to live in the harsh desert environment. Observing John's careful explanation made her reconsider her assumptions. She began to understand that size did not determine capability or intelligence. Even the smallest beings could be clever, adaptable, and resourceful. John continued by demonstrating the creature's interaction with obstacles. He set up small pebbles and a shallow groove in the observation area. The creature carefully navigated each barrier, adjusting its body and movement strategy with precision. Zara watched intently, leaning closer to study every detail. She could see the careful thought processes in the creature's behavior and the way John highlighted them. Notice how it evaluates each obstacle before moving, John explained. It doesn't rush. It senses the environment, adapts its movements, and proceeds carefully. That's how it survives, and that's why I brought it here for study. Observing these behaviors teaches us about resilience and adaptability, even in small creatures. Zara nodded slowly, her fascination growing. She was beginning to respect John not just for his calmness but also for his understanding of life. He was patient, observant, and thoughtful, qualities she had rarely seen displayed by humans in her experience. She realized that there was much to learn from his methods, and she felt a sense of admiration mixed with curiosity. As the afternoon passed, John introduced more elements into the observation area. He added small twigs, tiny stones, and a shallow water container. The creature explored each addition carefully, demonstrating problem-solving behavior and adaptability. Zara continued to watch, taking mental notes, impressed by both the creature and the human's methodology. John explained each observation in simple terms, making sure Zara could understand. It is learning from each experience, he said. Even small creatures adapt and solve problems. That's an important lesson about life in harsh environments. Observation, patience, and careful study reveal things that initial fear or assumptions can hide. Zara's fear had all but vanished. She was now leaning closer, her antennae relaxed, and her large eyes fixed on the tiny creature. She began to ask more detailed questions, wanting to understand its biology, behavior, and survival strategies. John answered each question thoroughly, using diagrams, gestures, and simple explanations. His calmness and knowledge reassured her, and she felt a growing sense of trust in his expertise. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the dome, John concluded his observations for the day. The creature had explored the entire observation area, tested every new object, and adapted to changes without stress or aggression. Zara was sitting nearby, watching quietly, fascinated by both the creature and the human who understood it so well. John carefully returned the tiny worm-like creature to a small secure container with food and water. He monitored its vitals using his sensors to ensure it remained healthy overnight. Zara observed, her expression reflecting a mixture of awe and contemplation. She had come into the situation expecting chaos and danger, but instead she had witnessed calmness, intelligence, and understanding. "This little creature is remarkable," Zara said softly. "I never expected to see such awareness in a being so small. And you handle it with patience and care. I did not think humans could act this way." John smiled. "Intelligence and patience are not limited to size or species," he said. "Understanding comes from observation, respect, and calmness. That's how we learn the truth about life even when it surprises us." The evening passed quietly. John recorded his final notes for the day, documenting every behavior, interaction, and response of the creature. Zara continued to watch silently, absorbing everything. She realized that humans had an unusual gift for observation and understanding, a combination of patience, intelligence, and care that even many aliens did not possess. By the end of the night, Zara had moved closer to the observation area, her curiosity fully awakened. She no longer feared the tiny worm-like creature. Instead, she wanted to learn more, to understand its behavior and what it could teach them. John's calm presence and careful explanations had transformed her fear into fascination. She was ready to see the world from a new perspective, guided by the patience and insight of a human explorer. John, exhausted but exhilarated, sat back and reflected on the day. The small creature, initially a source of alarm, had become a bridge between him and Zara. Their shared observation and study had begun to build trust and understanding. He knew that in the days ahead, they would learn even more about the desert creatures, the planet, and perhaps each other. The night grew quiet, the wind whistling softly outside the dome. The desert creature rested in its secure container, and Zara sat nearby, her eyes still fixed on it. John smiled faintly, knowing that today had been a success. Patience, observation, and care had turned fear into fascination. And this was only the beginning of a journey that would teach both human and alien new lessons about life, intelligence, and respect. As he prepared for sleep, John glanced at Zara and said, "Tomorrow we will continue our study. I think you will find even more to fascinate you." Zara nodded silently, a small smile forming on her face. She was beginning to see that humans had qualities she had underestimated: calmness in chaos, understanding in fear, and respect in the face of the unknown. The tiny desert creature, unaware of the lessons it had inspired, moved gently in its container. It had brought together two very different beings, showing that curiosity, patience, and intelligence could bridge worlds. John closed his eyes, thinking of the adventures to come, the discoveries that awaited, and the growing bond between him and the alien landlady who had once been so quick to yell in fear but was now eager to learn. Over the next few days, John focused on observing the tiny desert creature with great care. Each morning, as the sun rose over the endless dunes, he set up his observation area, carefully arranging sensors, lights, and small objects to simulate its natural environment. The creature, now more comfortable in its temporary home, moved confidently across the surfaces, testing each item and adjusting its behavior as needed. John recorded every movement, every pause, and every reaction, his data pad filling with sketches, notes, and observations. He had been an explorer for years, but each day on this desert planet brought a new sense of discovery, as the creature's intelligence revealed itself in subtle ways that fascinated him. Zara remained nearby, quietly observing. At first, she had maintained a cautious distance, but over time she grew more confident in John's handling of the creature. She watched the patterns he used to interact with it, how he placed food carefully, how he moved objects to create obstacles, and how he allowed the creature to explore without interference. She had never seen such patience before. Many beings she knew would have been startled, fearful, or even reckless, but John's calm demeanor created a peaceful environment for both the creature and her own mind. "Look at how it adapts," John said, pointing to the creature as it climbed over a small pebble he had placed on the observation table. It evaluates each obstacle and chooses the easiest path while avoiding unnecessary risk. That's a sign of problem-solving skills. Zara leaned closer, her antennae twitching slightly as she focused on the small animal. It is very careful, she said softly. I did not expect something so small to think so clearly. John smiled. Size does not determine intelligence. Even the smallest beings can show remarkable adaptability and learning. That's why observation and patience are so important. If we rush or interfere too much, we miss the subtle behaviors that reveal their true abilities. 4 hours they watched together in silence, interrupted only by John's occasional explanations. He demonstrated how the creature reacted to changes in light, shifts in temperature, and minor alterations in its environment. Zara observed attentively, her initial fear replaced by curiosity and respect. She asked questions about its physiology, behavior, and survival strategies, and John answered each one in simple, clear terms. I had assumed that creatures this small would be helpless in a harsh desert, Zara said at one point. But it seems clever, cautious, and resourceful. And you handle it with ease. John nodded. Humans learn by observing, experimenting carefully, and respecting the beings we study. Calmness is key. If you approach with aggression or fear, you only get fear in return. Patience allows the creature to show its natural behavior. Zara reflected on this, realizing that John's approach revealed more than just the creature's intelligence. It also showed her something about humans themselves. Unlike many of her own species who reacted quickly and decisively to unknown situations, humans like John could remain calm, analytical, and understanding, even when faced with things that seemed alarming. His ability to handle unusual circumstances with intelligence and patience was extraordinary in her eyes. Over the next few days the routine continued. John would prepare the observation area, the creature would explore and adapt, and Zara would watch quietly, learning from his methods. They began to share ideas. Zara suggested small obstacles, testing the creature's problem-solving skills in new ways. John explained the purpose of each addition, showing how observing the creature's reaction could teach them about adaptation and resilience. Notice how it evaluates your obstacles before moving, John said one morning. It doesn't rush. It makes decisions based on the environment. That's how it survives in the desert. Zara nodded. I see. And you do not force it. You let it make its own choices. That's right, John said. Forcing it would create stress and change its natural behavior. To understand life, we must respect its choices. Day by day, Zara's admiration for John grew. She began to recognize the value of his calm approach, his respect for life, and his ability to see beyond appearances. She had initially feared both the creature and the human, thinking that they were unpredictable and dangerous. But now she saw that understanding and patience revealed truths that fear alone could not. John continued to introduce minor variations in the creature's environment to test its adaptability. He recorded how it adjusted to small obstacles, new textures, and slight temperature changes. Each adjustment revealed something new about its intelligence, problem-solving skills, and instincts. Zara observed every movement carefully, noting how the creature thought, reacted, and learned. She realized that humans were capable of learning from the smallest details, extracting knowledge from observation, rather than relying solely on force or control. You handle this with great care, Zara said one evening. I can see how you learn not just about the creature but about life itself. Humans, you have a unique perspective. John smiled. Every species has lessons to teach. Even the smallest creatures can reveal important truths about survival, intelligence, and resilience. Observing carefully allows us to see what others might miss. As days turned into nights, their partnership deepened. Zara no longer felt fear when she entered John's dwelling. She watched with fascination as the creature explored, fed, and reacted to changes. She began to offer suggestions and ideas, and John welcomed her input, explaining his reasoning and the expected outcomes of each experiment. This collaboration strengthened her respect for him. I used to think humans were reckless, she admitted one evening. But you are patient, careful, and intelligent. You think before you act. I had underestimated your species. John shook his head with a gentle laugh. Many humans are different, yes. But curiosity, patience, and respect for life can show us the best in any species. That's what I strive for. To observe, learn, and understand without causing harm. Zara realized that John's approach was a lesson not only in studying the desert creature but also in dealing with life itself. His calm intelligence and thoughtful care allowed him to handle unusual situations that would have overwhelmed many others. She began to see that humans could achieve understanding and knowledge in ways her own species sometimes overlooked. The tiny creature had become a bridge between them. Zara, who had once yelled in alarm at its appearance, now observed it quietly, asking questions and learning. John's patient explanations and careful handling had turned fear into fascination and respect. Over the following days, the bond between human and alien strengthened, based on trust, knowledge, and a shared interest in life's mysteries. Even small moments, like feeding the creature or adjusting its environment, became lessons in observation, patience, and communication. Zara began to notice details she had missed before: the way the creature responded to subtle changes, the efficiency of its movements, and the intelligence behind its small actions. John explained each observation carefully, showing how understanding came from attention to detail and thoughtful analysis. "I can see now," Zara said one afternoon, "that humans can handle unusual situations calmly. You observe, you think, you adapt. It's remarkable." John nodded. "It's not just about handling situations. It's about understanding them. Observing carefully without fear or rush reveals more than we ever imagined." As the days passed, Zara's respect for John grew into admiration. She had initially feared the creature and the human alike, thinking that both were unpredictable and possibly dangerous. But the patient, methodical way John handled everything demonstrated intelligence, courage, and care. She realized that humans were capable of understanding and managing situations that would terrify or overwhelm many others. By the end of the week, John and Zara had established a routine. He studied the desert creature extensively, recording its behavior, feeding habits, and problem-solving skills. Zara observed closely, asked questions, and shared ideas. The small creature, once a source of fear and confusion, had become a focal point for learning and collaboration. Together, they explored its behaviors, adapted experiments, and discovered new insights into its intelligence. Zara reflected on what she had learned. Humans, she realized, could remain calm in chaos, understand life through observation, and inspire trust even in unusual circumstances. John's patient guidance had shown her a way of approaching the world that was unfamiliar but deeply effective. She admired his intelligence, his care for life, and his ability to see beyond fear. By the time night fell, John carefully returned the creature to its secure container, ensuring it had food, water, and appropriate temperature control. Zara remained nearby, silently observing. She felt a sense of respect and wonder she had never anticipated. The bond between human and alien was growing, founded on patience, understanding, and the shared joy of discovery. John looked at Zara and smiled. "Tomorrow we will continue. There's much more to observe, and I think you will see even more remarkable behavior." Zara nodded, a small smile forming on her face. She was no longer afraid. She was eager to learn, to watch, and to understand the world through John's patient, intelligent approach. The tiny desert creature rested quietly, unaware of the lessons it had inspired. Yet its presence had changed everything. Fear had turned to fascination, misunderstanding had turned to respect, and an unusual partnership had begun to form. John, the careful human explorer, and Zara, the skeptical alien landlady, were learning together. Through observation, patience, and empathy, they discovered the extraordinary within the ordinary. John lay down to rest, reflecting on the week's discoveries. The creature's intelligence, Zara's evolving perspective, and his own careful methods all reinforced the value of patience and understanding. In the harsh desert environment, with sand shifting endlessly outside, they had begun to form a unique bond, one that would continue to grow as they explored, observed, and learned together. Over the following weeks, the tiny desert creature became something of a celebrity in the small town near John's rented dwelling. Word spread quickly through both human and alien communities about the unusual little animal that had shown intelligence, adaptability, and remarkable behavior. People came to observe it in its controlled environment, marveling at the way it navigated obstacles, responded to changes, and interacted with its surroundings. Children were fascinated, leaning close to watch its movements and asking questions about its behavior. Scientists from nearby research stations visited to see firsthand the creature's unique adaptations, and John welcomed each of them, carefully explaining his observations with patience and clarity. Zara was often by his side during these visits, watching with a mixture of pride and amazement. She had initially feared the tiny worm-like creature and had yelled in shock at its presence, but now she observed it with admiration. Seeing humans respond to the creature with curiosity and respect, rather than fear or ridicule, impressed her deeply. She had learned a valuable lesson about humans: They could approach the unknown calmly, study it carefully, and draw knowledge without panic or aggression. Her initial assumptions about human behavior were being completely rewritten. John demonstrated the creature's daily routines to the visitors. He showed how it explored its environment, tested objects, and adapted to minor changes in its enclosure. Zara listened attentively to his explanations, occasionally adding her own insights about the creature's behavior based on what she had observed. Together they created a sense of trust and respect that was evident to everyone who came to watch. Aliens who had once been skeptical of human methods now stood in awe, noting the patience, intelligence, and careful observation that John employed. "It is incredible how much information we can gain from careful study," John explained during one demonstration. "This creature may be small, but its behavior is complex. By observing it calmly, we can learn about adaptation, intelligence, and problem-solving in ways we might never have imagined." Zara nodded. "I see now that humans can handle situations that would overwhelm others. You do not rush. You do not panic. You study, you understand, and you teach. I underestimated your species at first." John smiled gently. "Curiosity and patience go a long way. Understanding life, whether human, alien, or small desert creatures, requires respect and careful observation. Fear never teaches anything. Calmness and attention do." As the creature continued to explore, it became clear to the community that it was more than just an oddity. It was intelligent, capable of learning, and surprisingly adaptable to its environment. Children who came to watch it learned lessons about problem-solving, observation, and patience. Alien visitors noted how humans and creatures could coexist with mutual respect. The tiny desert creature became a symbol of what careful study, intelligence, and respect for life could achieve. John carefully documented every behavior, from how the creature climbed over obstacles to how it reacted to minor changes in light and temperature. He explained to visitors how each observation provided insight into survival strategies in harsh environments. Zara, who had once yelled in fear, now explained alongside him, describing the subtle signals that indicated curiosity, caution, and decision-making in the small creature. Together they became a team, showing how humans and aliens could learn from each other while respecting life. "It is amazing," Zara said one afternoon as they watched the creature navigate a series of small pebbles and twigs. "I used to think humans were reckless and unprepared for unexpected situations. But you are clever, patient, and brave. Even in the strangest circumstances, you handle everything calmly." John chuckled. "It comes down to observation and respect. The universe is full of surprises. The key is not to fear them but to study them and learn. Even the smallest creatures can teach the biggest lessons if we pay attention." The tiny desert creature responded to its environment with intelligence that amazed all who watched. It adjusted its movements, tested each surface, and even seemed to recognize familiar faces among the visitors. Children giggled in delight, leaning close to watch its tiny bristles twitch as it explored. Aliens nodded thoughtfully, impressed by the creature's problem-solving skills. John explained the significance of each action in simple terms, making the lessons accessible to everyone present. Zara, observing quietly, reflected on how much she had learned in the past few weeks. She had feared the creature, misunderstood its purpose, and doubted humans' ability to handle unusual situations. But now she saw a different truth. Humans could remain calm under pressure, study the unknown patiently, and draw knowledge without causing harm. John had demonstrated that intelligence was not just about size or strength. It was about understanding, patience, and careful observation. Throughout the week, John continued to guide both the creature and the observers. He introduced new challenges for the creature, small ramps, different textures, and gentle obstacles, and carefully recorded its responses. Zara helped him monitor reactions, noting which strategies the creature used to overcome difficulties. Together, they taught others that careful observation and respect for life were more powerful than fear or aggression. "The creature is thriving," Zara noted one afternoon, smiling. "It moves confidently, explores without hesitation, and adapts quickly. And you have taught all of us something important. Humans are capable of more than I imagined." John nodded. "It is not about humans being better or stronger. It is about being thoughtful, patient, and observant. Life comes in many forms, and each form teaches us something new if we pay attention. That is the lesson here, not just about this creature but about how we approach the universe." Visitors continued to arrive, each amazed at the small desert creature and at the cooperation between John and Zara. Humans asked questions about its behavior, aliens debated its intelligence, and children watched in awe. John answered each question with calmness and clarity, never rushing, never showing frustration. Zara supported him, sharing her own observations and learning alongside the visitors. The tiny creature had become the focal point of learning, bridging gaps between species, generations, and experiences. News of the tiny desert creature spread beyond the local town. Researchers from other planets requested data, children wrote stories inspired by its adventures, and aliens praised John's methodical and patient study. Zara proudly told them about the human who had earned her respect by demonstrating intelligence, courage, and calmness in the face of the unexpected. She had witnessed firsthand how humans could adapt, teach, and inspire trust, even in situations that seemed frightening or strange at first. One evening, as the sun set over the desert dunes, Zara turned to John. "I never imagined I would learn so much from a tiny creature and a human," she said softly. "You have shown me that fear is not always justified, and patience and observation can reveal the truth about life." John smiled. "The universe is full of surprises. What matters is how we approach them. By staying calm, respectful, and curious, we can learn more than we ever imagined. That applies to creatures, people, and even ourselves." The tiny desert creature rested in its enclosure, its bristles twitching gently as it adjusted to the evening temperature. It had become a symbol of intelligence, adaptability, and the power of observation. John and Zara continued to watch over it, ensuring it remained safe and healthy. Their bond had strengthened through shared learning, mutual respect, and the recognition of the value each could bring to understanding life. Over time, the creature became more than just an object of study. It inspired stories, lessons, and admiration from both humans and aliens alike. It showed that even the smallest beings could teach the greatest lessons. And John, through his calm intelligence and patient observation, had demonstrated the best qualities of humanity: cleverness, patience, bravery, and the ability to learn and teach without fear. Zara often reflected on how much her perspective had changed. She had begun as a skeptical, easily shocked landlady, but she now respected humans for their ability to understand and adapt. She saw that John's calm approach could reveal truths others overlooked and that his patience and knowledge were as valuable as any physical strength or advanced technology. The town came to celebrate the tiny desert creature. Children laughed as it crawled across safe enclosures, aliens nodded in admiration at its intelligence, and humans marveled at John's dedication to understanding life. Zara proudly joined in, sharing her experience and newfound respect for the human who had handled the unusual situation with skill and care. John continued his observations, recording every detail of the creature's behavior and ensuring its well-being. He taught visitors to approach the creature with respect and patience, showing that understanding and intelligence were more powerful than fear or force. Zara watched with pride, seeing how a small creature and a patient human could inspire an entire community. One afternoon, Zara approached John with a thoughtful expression. "I used to believe humans were reckless and impulsive," she said. "But you have shown me that you can be careful, intelligent, and brave. Even in the strangest situations you handle everything calmly. I have learned more from you than I expected." John smiled gently. "That is the goal. Observing, understanding, and learning, whether from creatures, situations, or people, is what allows us to grow. We can only respect life and knowledge by approaching them with patience and curiosity." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the desert sky in shades of orange and purple, John and Zara watched the tiny creature exploring its enclosure one last time for the day. The winds whispered softly outside, and the desert world seemed quiet and calm. The tiny desert creature had changed the perception of both humans and aliens. It had inspired curiosity, respect, and learning. And through it, John and Zara had forged a bond of understanding, admiration, and mutual respect. The story of the tiny desert creature spread across the desert town and beyond, inspiring humans and aliens alike to value intelligence, patience, and observation. John earned respect for his careful study and deep understanding of alien life, and Zara learned that humans could handle even the strangest situations with cleverness, bravery, and calmness. Together, they had shown that fear could be replaced with fascination, misunderstanding could become respect, and even the smallest creatures could teach the greatest lessons. And so, in a small desert town under the endless dunes and stars, a human, an alien, and a tiny desert creature became symbols of patience, understanding, and the power of intelligence over fear. Their story reminded everyone that even the most unusual situations could reveal the best qualities in those who approached them with care, curiosity, and courage.